Every time you've not said what you needed to say in that relationship, or every time you've kind of bypassed your own needs, that's created a bit of anxiety, a bit of cortisol in your body, hasn't it, right? Which makes you less motivated, makes you more depressed, causes more anxiety, causes health issues. My Mother Said I Shouldn't, with Sarah and Michaela. Hello and welcome to another episode of My Mother Said I Shouldn't with myself, Michaela, and Sarah.
Hello.
We are sponsored by Row Pictures. Our Row Pictures, Cal O'Connell. Say hello.
Oh, I got a surname this time.
Yeah.
Hello.
Cal's our producer.
We were talking about his surname O'Connell and he was very proud of it. So I thought I would bring it into the introduction. So today...
Thank you.
We don't even say our own second names.
No, we don't. That's true. And they will remain...
Anonymous.
Forever. So, on that note, my mother said I shouldn't put myself first in relationships.
Why?
Yeah, why?
Because, so you think about the kids, you should never put yourself first with kids. Kids always come first. And you shouldn't, well, putting yourself first is too selfish. Selfish, putting yourself first.
Right, so hang on. So is this to say that women shouldn't put themselves first or anyone shouldn't put themselves first in a relationship?
She's spoken it to me, so maybe women or maybe anyone. I don't know. I think she thinks that, you know, you should be given in a relationship. You shouldn't put yourself first. You don't want to be selfish. My mum says that a lot, you know. You shouldn't be selfish.
I suppose to help make a relationship work, being selfish all the time isn't going to work, is it? If you're just constantly selfish. I mean, the use of the word, that's not really, just because you're putting yourself first doesn't actually mean you're being selfish. But if you always put yourself first, then you're not willing to compromise, right? You're always, and in a relationship, you kind of have to be able to compromise because you're two people coming together, two different opinions, two different thoughts, two different ways of life. Like, you have to find a compromise, right?
What's the difference between putting yourself first and not being selfish?
I suppose it was for selfish means. But then I suppose, so I don't know, because I suppose anybody could say if you put yourself first, then that's selfish because you're thinking about yourself.
It has a very negative connotation generally, doesn't it?
It does. But so I would say if you're putting yourself first because there's real reason behind it, then fine. But if you're just putting yourself first, even though there's facts around that to say actually it could probably be could be fine if you did it this way, but you want to do it this specific way just because it's your...
awfully complicated, isn't it? I'm wondering, what's the problem though? So I say to my mum, why can't I put myself first? What's wrong with me expressing my needs, desires and boundaries and wants? Why is that wrong? Why is it wrong to fill my cup up?
Well, that's not wrong.
But we think it. And a lot of people think it. A lot of people think that they can't be selfish in a relationship, that they need to give. And then that attracts someone who just takes. No?
Yeah, absolutely. And
my mum's had that history herself, having that kind of relationship.
And giving and just trying to please that person to keep them around. Make sure they're happy. You're happy, so stay. Everything's fine. You love me. I'm not difficult. I had to give you everything, so you want to stay.
And then that leads to resentment.
So that's people pleasing then?
It's people pleasing, isn't it?
But also the fear of losing the person.
Yeah, so then it's lack mentality, it's a low self-esteem. So it definitely signifies so in my head I'm thinking putting yourself first is not about me being selfish and taking something away from you, but me expressing to you my opinions, my boundaries, my voice, making sure that I'm looking after my health, that I'm not compromising some of the most valuable things to me for anyone.
Yeah, I think
is that a problem?
I don't think that's a problem. No, I think that's something that you should do to keep yourself in a good space to be able to be there 100% for other people.
So why do we struggle with that then?
Society thing, right?
Acceptance, not being judged,
not wanting to look, I suppose, selfish.
So in a relationship, do you think you've been guilty of that?
I mean, I definitely have, absolutely.
Yeah, right. Yeah, 100%.
Because I think you're right. It is a self-esteem thing. It is a self-worth thing. Because if you take something from you and for yourself, you're taking it away from somebody. That's
and
super
where
complicated.
Does compromise become people pleasing? You know what I mean? Where how do you draw the line with that? Where is it that, you know, for example, I want to go for a Thai and Tom wants to go for an Indian, and I'm constantly saying, no, it's okay, you pick, you pick, you pick.
Well, that's, you've just said the word there, constantly.
But I don't mind.
Yeah,
Doesn't bother me.
But if you're constantly
But I
being
don't
a person,
mind. I eat anything.
oh,
No, I don't.
I
But
know.
this is what
That's
I'm
the thing.
saying to you,
So-
because this is what my clients say to me. These are the exact examples. I don't mind though. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me at all. Okay, well, would you rather go for an Indian? Like if that's your favourite meal? Oh yeah, I would. But I'm not bothered. I'll go for the right.
And then, but then that would create resentment because you're constantly like, oh, at the beginning, yeah, that's nice, that's fine, because it's all fine. But over time, that you're going to get resentful at the fact you always eat an Indian over a Thai.
And it depends, doesn't it? So I know people who've been in relationships and they've been very, very people pleasing and not expressing their own boundaries and needs and voicing themselves. So then you start resenting the person because you've given so much to the relationship. And even though you've not been logging it, you have been logging it. Because every time you've not said what you needed to say in that relationship, or every time you've kind of bypassed your own needs, that's created a bit of anxiety, a bit of cortisol in your body, hasn't it, right? Which makes you less motivated, makes you more depressed, causes more anxiety, causes health issues. People don't realise that. I literally was shocked when I read this, but every single time that you say yes when you want to say no, it causes a little bit of anxiety, and that builds up over time. It compounds over time, and it can create a heightened, anxious, cortisol state.
That's why they say it's women. There's the fact out there, isn't it? It's one of the psychologists are saying that women will die younger. The women that are in a relationship that are saying that are keeping their voice like behind, like they're not speaking
They're
their true
repressing it.
thoughts.
Yeah.
They're repressing the thoughts.
The oppressed woman will die sooner.
Will die sooner because she's holding all that negativity in.
There's been
and she's not
studies on
saying,
that.
so it is so important to
your
get that out.
mortality is lower if you do not put yourself first. And did you know as well that the prefrontal cortex...
Sorry, did you mean your mortality is higher?
Mortality is higher, sorry, I didn't mean that. And did you know that the prefrontal cortex as well, so the part of your brain which is for thinking, for emotional regulation, that loses efficiency the more that you don't put yourself first. And the amygdala, which is responsible for like those heightened, usually fearful states, I think it's mostly fearful states actually, of like fear, anxiety, fight and flight states, that gets bigger.
That's also the physiological description of ADHD and ADD.
So it's absolutely mad that just these behaviours and these habits that we reinforce over time are developing and not developing certain areas of our brains, which in turn affect our mortality and affect our health, not just the relationships that we're in.
And that's why they say one of the biggest decisions you make is the relationship that is the partner that you choose. Because if you feel like you can't speak and you can't voice your thoughts and you hold that in, then it literally has an effect on the length of your life.
And so many people struggle with that. They struggle to overcome that. Like some of the clients that I work with, just saying no to someone or just trying to assert themselves because they've co-created that relationship now where one person in the relationship sees, for example, you as being someone who is very flexible and will bend to my will. And I'm used to that. As soon as you start saying no to me and start saying, well, actually, I'd like to do this, all of a sudden I'm like, what the hell? And not necessarily because I'm a bad person, but we've co-created that relationship. And now that's making me feel a little bit uncertain about you, which is causing a bit of anxiety in me. And that's something that I noticed when I went on this journey of saying no. I used to say yes all the time. I wouldn't even think of the question. Someone would ask something of me, like, yeah. And now I have to stop myself from doing that and politely say no if I don't want to. Don't always get it right. I'm still a bit of a sucker for that sometimes, to be honest.
I think it's hard to always say no, especially if someone's asking you for something, especially if it's someone that you love or is your friend. If they ask you, you want to be like, well, yeah, I want to help in any way I can. But I suppose the line has to be drawn when it starts to impact you. It starts to impact the time that you've got and the things that you need to get done by a certain point. And is it going to add stress onto you by doing this thing that they're asking you to do, or by going on that night out and you've promised to go on? Oh, I really should go, but I don't want to let them down. Like, but then how's that going to impact you the following day? So I think it is all down to...
So what do you do in that situation then? So you've promised me a night out, right? You've promised me a night out. But you absolutely exhausted. You know I'm so excited for that night out. You know it's not good for you, but you've made a promise to me. What advice in that situation do you have, Sarah?
My past me would have pushed, actually, would I? Because nights outs were different for me.
Because let's talk about something very relevant. We had a Christmas night planned. You were very, very poorly. Very poorly. You were staying at mine. You were going to work that day. The plan was to meet in town. And although you weren't like too physically poorly, you were mentally drained from being physically poorly. And you were like, right, okay, so I'll meet in town. And I was like, what? We're not still going. And you were like, yeah, no, it's our Christmas night. And I was like, but you're ill. Like, you've been so ill. We can just do it at home. And you were like, are you sure? Like, is that okay? And I was like, of course it's okay.
But I would have still done that because it's our Christmas night. So to me, I'm like, this is our Christmas night to go out. But what's interesting is mentally exhausted is different from physically exhausted for me. So if I'm if I actually physically can't, if I'm ill, I won't be there. Mentally, I'll push myself through, which I don't know how that's probably unhealthy for my brain.
And how many times do you do that in relationships? Mentally, you push through and not speak about, you know, what you feel could be useful to speak about, or put your opinions across, or your desires or your wants, because you're like, you know what, I can deal with it. It's fine. So I'll push through.
And that's what you do, isn't it? That is the thing. It's fine. I'm strong enough. I can absorb that. That's fine. Move on. Let's not cause a problem. Let's keep it nice and easy.
Not cause a problem.
Let's not cause. Because I'm like, there's a reason behind. What's the reason behind when you're not saying these things? And it is so it doesn't cause any issues, especially at the beginning of a relationship.
What do you mean don't by want cause to be issues?
Cause any like the difficult conversations,
friction.
Make it look like this is a tricky relationship to be in.
We are so scared of difficult conversations. Do you not think that? So many of my clients really struggle to understand that difficult conversations can be the best conversations, the most transformative conversations in a lot of their relationships. Not, you know, saying go out and have them all the time, but I'm just saying if you can lean into them, you can teach that person something and they can teach you, like you can work together. And if you can like openly say to that person in front of you something that's been on your mind, that's really difficult for you to say because you're scared you're going to offend, you're scared you're going to upset, you're scared you're going to lose them. That not only strengthens your ability to voice your own opinions and gain that self-trust and have that self-esteem that's going to carry you through your life, but it also gives them the respect of truth and honesty, which we often deny them because in our heads we go, they won't be able to deal with it. I'll tell them this, they're going to react bad and they won't be able to deal with it.
Do you know though, I think you hit it on the head there when you said the fear of losing the person.
Yeah.
To have a difficult conversation, you're bringing up something obviously that's uncomfortable for you. It's going to be uncomfortable for them, which makes it a difficult conversation, right? You're scared to lose them. Like, you obviously love this person because you're struggling to have this difficult conversation. The fear of loss can definitely hold that back. You think, okay, it's fine. If I can deal with it, I'm fine. I won't bring it up. I don't want to lose this person. I love them too much.
Not necessarily loss. It could be just their reactions.
Yeah, but then the reaction, which could cause a loss. So it all comes down to what's the ultimate conflict. Yeah, what's the ultimate end thing? What is the worst thing you go to when you're having this difficult conversation? What is the worst thing that can happen? We will lose each other.
You know what?
So that's the fear, right?
Because my fear goes, if I don't have this difficult conversation, then that's gonna turn into resentment, and then you will definitely lose me. I'll check out. If I get resentful and get angry, I'm gonna check out, and that won't be their fault. That'd be my fault because I never told them. I never communicated it. At least this way I've communicated how I'm feeling and we can work together to try and figure it out, you know? If I don't communicate that, take Tom for example, he's not a mind reader. He can't guess what's going on in my brain. He's not going to know that there's an issue until I explicitly say him, especially Tom. Tom needs it to be told. He needs like explicitly said.
Do you know what I find that, look, guys that I've dated, I've said, like, if you don't tell me, how am I supposed to know? And I think that's the thing. I think women think, because women, we can read, well, I'm not just putting this down, men can do it too, but you can read their body and think, you're not right, something's wrong, what's going on? Let's have,
we're more receptive to it. Yeah. And we're more open to talk about it.
Right. But I think
when you look at the suicide,
aren't like that.
The suicide figures, is it like, Cal, you might have to fact check this, is it like 75% of suicides are men?
It's high, I don't know that much.
It's ridiculous, and it's a lot of it is to do with the fact that men don't talk about it. They can't talk about it. It's shamed for them to talk about it. Like even Tom said to me, I don't talk about my emotions with the lads. Like the lads, you don't do that to the lads. He only really has that space with me. He doesn't really have that with other lads.
Yeah, that's
which
interesting.
Is so sad.
Yeah, 'cause I did have a conversation with him, and I could tell he was taken aback by it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Like an emotional conversation?
Yeah.
Yeah, he'd have been thrown out, did you?
Yeah,
oh, I'm glad you did.
because we have very similar parenting stories, and I think consequently it was like, it wasn't a lad's conversation, it was a I'm here for your brother kind of conversation. Anyway, yeah, the sad statistics are
I know they're bad.
I mean, this is Jesus. I hope. I'm going to carry on. I'm just going to double check this.
Yeah, no, there's... Go on.
You do have, I think there are some men I think there are men out there that do have their groups of friends and they are getting more open, because I do know men that can have those conversations, that are there for their friends. Look, let's have this, let's
You've
go
got
deep.
different groups, haven't you, at the minute,
Yeah.
that are encouraging that.
Which is
and
great.
Man's Club, I think that's one in Manchester.
There's Menfulness in the York area as well, if you're interested. Now, we'll maybe stick some links in the description
Because
for that one.
this is an interesting topic, actually. We're talking about put yourself first. I wonder if more men struggle to voice the issues that they're having in a relationship than women.
I can imagine they might just not want to upset the women as well.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I know Tom, and I've said this in previous episodes, and maybe this is why he does it now. Sometimes I might bring up something and then he's got like a load of cannons fired at me that have been building up that he's not been telling me about, because he just swipes it to one side. And it could just be, not because he's firing them up, but that at the time he's going, no, it's fine. It's fine. I don't need to make a scene. I don't need to cause a drama. I don't want to annoy her. You know what I mean? Like, I don't feel comfortable being vulnerable. We had a chat the other day on Sunday, actually, and we were just walking and we were talking through some things, and he was really openly vulnerable, and he said something to me that he'd never said before about a certain thing he was insecure about, and I nearly cried. Because I was like, you've never said that to me before. And I felt so much closer to him, made me understand a lot more. It's going to make me react very, very differently in the future. And yeah, it was a bit of a moment of, wow, like we've been together for so many years and he'd never actually said that something had made him feel a certain way.
And do you
so
think,
vividly.
Do you think then that it'd be interesting to see men when they have partners, that they are the rates of, is it men when they are single, when they're alone, or men when they've got those partners that they can actually have those conversations with, how that impacts mental health? Because if you are with a partner, I mean, not that every partnership can have those deep, difficult conversations, but to have that space with your partner, I can imagine that's quite a draw. Then
It's safety. It's emotional safety. I can say this from experience. If a man, speaking as a man, if we don't feel safe in a relationship, or emotionally safe in a relationship, I have not spoken. I have not been selfish. I have not spoken a problem for myself. I've just kept quiet. I've dulled it down. I've pushed it back. And it's only then, since, I think, like in Tommy's position as well, if we feel safe to be able to do so, we will do. But that doesn't happen with a lot of men, and unfortunately, that's just to bring that statistic back in. That's why the percentage of suicides in the UK, at least, equals to 76%.
It was, yeah. 76%.
Yeah.
Amen.
So emotional safety is a big thing.
But how do you create that emotional safety then? So you're saying the emotional safety, is that with the emotional safety with friends? Is that the emotional safety with your partner?
I'd say with all, yeah. I mean, friends, yes, but especially with your partner, because you're going to tell your partner things you aren't going to tell your friends.
So how do you get that emotional safety with your partner though? Like, so anybody listening, like, just for your advice on what, you guys have been through, or as also Cal, with you as a man, how, if you're a woman in a relationship and you wanted your partner to feel emotionally safe.
I think you've got to be really patient. Like, and Cal, I don't know whether you were similar, but Tom didn't pour his heart out on day one. Like, this has been something he's had to get accustomed to, opening up and being vulnerable. And because I think there is this kind of camaraderie thing of like, I must protect, I must not show my emotions, I must just get on, I must be the man, right? And
You said this on your wedding day.
yeah.
He said to me, I haven't cried in 2 years.
And then he cried on the wedding day. But he always said he would.
It was such a big deal, which, it should be.
It's huge for
Yeah,
him.
yeah.
Huge. No, it was longer than 2 years.
And he
hadn't
felt safe
cried
to
in
do,
like 5 years.
And he said, the point was that he felt safe to be able to do it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, if you want to create safety for a guy, towards a guy at least, it's, if they've got problems, you don't ridicule them. You don't make it, you make them feel like, you're on their side. Yeah, right.
You listen and you show them that you're not looking for perfection. You're just looking for honesty as well. And that they can be open and vulnerable, and you're not going to throw it in their face. I think some people will throw it in their face. I know that when I was younger, I think I did that. Like, I think a partner told me, I was only 15 at the time, but I actually remember it. He told me about something to do with his dad, and I threw it in his face when he annoyed me. Like, you don't do that. That was a horrible thing to do. And that was a trait that I'd picked up, I think, from my mum, because my mum could be a bit volatile like that growing up. And I think it was a bit of a learned behaviour. And I think it was also like, I did used to be, I could like bite, I could nip. And I've really worked on that now. Like, so that passive aggressive, or no, it's aggression actually. It's that aggression doesn't come out, and it doesn't come out when you fill your own cup. And that's the thing that's changed with me. Within that particular relationship, he was cheating on me. He was not being a nice boyfriend. That's why it was coming out that way. I wasn't filling my own cup. Now I make sure that I am prioritizing myself, so that I can look after Tom and I can hold him, and he can trust me. And I think you have to, in those conversations where you're being so open and so vulnerable about your insecurities, you need to know that partner is going to be respectful with that information. And if you think they're not going to be respectful, or they haven't been respectful in the past because another girl did it in a different way, or another guy did it in a different way, then you're not going to be as open. And I know that that's a thing with Tom as well. Like, in previous relationships, there wasn't a space for him to communicate how he felt, because a couple of his past relationships, they were really suffering with their mental health. So he said to me, he was like, I couldn't, like, there's not a space for me to talk about mine. I needed to look after them. And I was like, did they never even just ask how you were, or just check in? And he was like, no, like they couldn't,
So it's both men and women not putting themselves first in a relationship.
It's both sides of the coin.
So really having those open communications, open conversations, and putting yourself first in a sense of filling your own cup is the way to a more healthier relationship.
And I think each individual needs to work on like accepting themselves and doing kind of like this inner work, because for you to be able to receive feedback from your partner, you need to feel mentally strong, and you need to feel resilient, and you need to not judge yourself with that feedback. And that's really hard to do if you're feeling quite
low.
Yeah, and you're feeling, you're not feeling good enough.
Yeah.
If you're not feeling good enough, when your partner gives you some feedback, that's just going to make you feel even lower, and you're not going to react in a great way. And then that's going to make your partner think, oh, I can't give them feedback because then they react in this way. So it's a really, really tricky one.
It is. But I think you're in the sense of everybody should be filling their cup, because I've seen so many people and relationships, especially in the older generation, they haven't filled their cup, and it's the stress that's caused them, and also the turbulent relationships that's created. It's not been healthy, but I suppose it's people changing this thing of filling your own cup and selfish. Let's separate that in the negative connotation of selfish.
But it creates a habit. If you constantly put someone else's needs above yours in the relationship, then you end up doing that in all areas of your life. Because every time you do that, every time you quieten your voice, every time I prioritise you and neglect myself, I am telling myself I do not deserve to speak up. I am telling myself that I do not deserve to have choices. It's catastrophic what that does.
Yeah.
And every single client I work with who does this, sooner or later they snap, and then they react really badly to one person. And that person's like, why are you reacting like this? Why are you talking to me like this?
And it's usually the person closest to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one you love, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. And they will just snap like what I was telling you about before. And when I was younger, that's what would happen with me. I would get beaten and walked on so much that it just get to the point that I'd just be like, ah! and it would come out. I didn't know how to assert myself. I wasn't used to it, right? I wasn't used to having these conversations. So it was coming out all wrong when I tried to. And I was so emotional at that stage. My emotions got the better of me and I would just snap. And I see that in my clients. They really, really struggle to have these open conversations and these vulnerable conversations, and to say no.
I think saying no is the hardest thing. And my niece, she literally is the best at saying no. And my sister is so proud of her to be like, she'll say, do you want to do this? No. Do you want to go do? No.
How old is she?
Literally, she's 8.
Yeah.
And she's so happy to say no. And we are keeping it. We're like, do you know what? Nobody say nothing about that. You keep saying no, because all of us would have preferred to been able to say no. And there's so many times, and if she keeps that when she's older in her 20s, oh my goodness, is that going to help her? But this, I think it's been a, be polite, be nice. Yes. Put others first, put other people first. You're right. Let's learn to say no. Let's learn to say, no, I don't want to do that. And that's fine. That doesn't mean you're a bad person, a bad friend, that you're going to ruin someone else's day. Let them deal with it. Whatever you say no. So yeah, let's actually make that a slogan.
And when
learn to say no.
Yeah, it's something that I actively encourage my clients to do if they're struggling with this. And when you are saying yes, is it coming from this is one thing I'll always say to my clients, is it coming from an expansive place or a contractive place? If it's coming from something that feels like closed and it's making you feel heavy and it feels dark and it feels weighted, then maybe it's not coming from a place of desire and a place of offering, of kindness. Like, it's coming from a place of, I feel like I have to do this to get their love, to get their acceptance, to get whatever the end of that sentence is. If it's feeling expansive, there's a last, we'll go on the food sharing, seeing as we've discussed that before. There's a last Ferrero Rocher on the table and I let you have it because I genuinely want you to have it because I love sharing and I want to make you happy and give you that. Then yeah, do you know what I mean? Like, lean into that. But I think it's recognizing the reason why you're doing something. Are you doing something out of guilt and of pressure, or are you doing something out of like desire, goodwill and offering? They're very, very different things. And if you keep doing things because you feel pressured and because you feel shamed into it or guilted into it, that's gonna compound and it could be catastrophic. It probably will be catastrophic in that relationship, and many relationships, and a lot of my clients' relationships have ended because of it. It goes too far.
Yeah.
And if they'd have had a conversation earlier, it could have saved that relationship. So ultimately, being self-serving and putting yourself first can save your relationships.
It can make the strongest one.
But the spin on that, when does it go too far? When you're putting yourself first? Because when you were talking then, and it's like, about your niece saying no and no and no, like, when is it like it's my way or the highway?
Well, this is it. I suppose that's why I was thinking about how the selfishness part comes in. Then it becomes, okay, is that the negative connotation now? Are you being selfish? You're not thinking about the other person. Because I was also saying, like, sometimes when you really don't want to do something, but it's really going to help that person, and you're like, oh my goodness, I cannot, but because I love them, I'm pushing through and I'm doing it, right? I think there's also a difference there. And sometimes you might just not want to do it but it's the love that I love that person, so I'm going to do it, right? I think that is also fine as well. I think that's, you can do that for your loved ones, but doing that all the time is different. However, constantly say no and doing your own way the whole time, yes, there is obviously issues with that, which can cause really, that won't be very nice in a relationship either.
People fear that, don't they? They fear that if they start saying no, and they don't want to be selfish, and they don't, so how do we get that in check? How do we establish our boundaries but still be empathetic so that we can compromise?
I think it's also just being kind, like being a kind human. So like, as you're saying with my niece, like when she's saying no, she's still a very kind human. So like,
and what does that
she'll
mean,
still
being kind?
Kind, thinking about others. So she'll still think about, empathetic. She'll think about others as well. So, but if she just doesn't want to do anything, she's not going to do it to please you. She won't do it to please anyone else. And that, I think, is incredible. But it's having that balance, and it's making sure that you're also, the empathy is there. And okay, well, in saying no, okay, I can say no, but also, I suppose, how does that affect that person on certain situations when I'm saying no? I suppose maybe thinking about the other person too.
Yeah, but also it's that empathy. People say empathy, don't they? And they're like, I'm very empathetic, and they're not often empathetic to themselves.
Yes,
so it's
100%.
Like you're empathetic to others, but you're not empathetic to yourself. So I would say you're not very empathetic. So it's listening to internally, and how often do we actually take a moment to reflect about what's going on inside of us and inside our brains and what we're thinking? How often are we just reacting? You know, they say after the age of 35, you're subconsciously reacting 95% of the time. So if you're a people pleaser and you don't like letting people down, you're saying yes 95% of the time, right? And at least potentially if 50% after that of the 5%, it could be, you know, if you manage to say no 50% of that, you're only saying no 2.5% of the time. So it's kind of like, how do we, you know, navigate that?
That is a question we should put out to the listeners. Do you put yourself first in a relationship? Do you not put yourself first in a relationship or in life? And have you, this conversation now, has that made anything pop up in your head and think, actually, wait a minute, maybe I do need to show some self-empathy. It's something that everyone does.
Yeah. And do you struggle with your boundaries? Do you struggle with empathy? Do you struggle with knowing how to kind of work around that? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, if you like this episode, please feel free to give it a like, a share, and a subscribe. And we will see you next time. Have a lovely day.
See you next time. Bye.